Merkel Media.
Touch air, couldn't breathe, and I couldn't move because I know I'm seeing a monster.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, everybody. You're listening to The Confessionals. I'm your host, Tony Merkel. Thanks for being here. If you have a crazy, wild experience you want to share with me on the show, go ahead and shoot me an email. My email address is theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. That's theconfessionals@theconfessionalspodcast.com. Or go to the website, theconfessionalspodcast.com. Hit the contact section. You can reach us that way as well. Either way works for us. Just get a hold of us. If you want to hear more shows on a weekly basis, go to theconfessionalspodcast.com. Hit the join button and become a member. There you'll get extra shows every Thursday. You'll get access to the Tuesday shows ad-free, and you'll get access to the overtime segments right there on the website and on the Castos app. So if that interests you, check out theconfessionals.com/join. If you want, go ahead to preparewiththeconfessionals.com. That's preparewiththeconfessionals.com. There you can get yourself emergency preparedness food that will last you up to 25 years on the shelf, and survival gear. So whether it's the food or the survival gear, we got you covered at preparewiththeconfessionals.com. Check that out if that interests you. And friends, also, we are going on tour. The Shanley Hotel in New York on April 8th through the 9th. This tour is called the Spirits Are In Tour, and we are taking about 15 to 20 people to New York to the Shanley Hotel to spend a haunted night there in the hotel with me. So what this is we get on a bus and we take a ride up to New York. We stop for lunch and dinner on the way up and the way down, and we spend the night at the Shanley Hotel, and we have paranormal investigators come in to do their paranormal investigating thing. It's going to be a whole big fun event, and if you want in on that, go ahead and contact Creed or Jen at Educated Wanderer. Creed is my brother-in-law, and he is organizing the trip. You can email him at travelgrouptours@aol.com. That's travelgrouptours@aol.com, or you can call him at 973-513-9001, or just go to their website, educatedwanderer.com. That's educatedwanderer.com. Contact them if you're interested in joining me on the Spirits Are In Tour on the way up to Shanley Hotel, where we spend the whole night there. It's going to be bonkers. I hope you guys join me. All right, now, last but not least, let's do the YouTube thing. Go over to YouTube, hit subscribe, hit the alarm bell button, follow The Confessionals on YouTube. If you look at YouTube as social media, it is our biggest social media account. We're coming up on 25,000 subscribers right there on the YouTube page. Please, please, please head on over there and hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. That'd be great for me. It helped me out a lot. Thank you very much in advance. Now, this week we have Jamal coming on the show. Jamal has been on the show before for episode 315, Skinwalkers on the Reservation, and episode 339, Goatman Found Us. Well, he's making his return today to tell more of his legendary stories stemming from life on the reservation. So let's get to Jamal right now. All right, today we got Jamal returning to the show, my man. How you doing?
Good. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing, man. Listen, 3 times on the show, I think that you are in elite company with the Confessionals. I can't think of anybody who we've had on 3 times that wasn't like an author or something like that. I know we've had Charlie Robinson on a few times, but you know, he's written a book, he has a podcast, all that stuff. Man, your stories are jaw-dropping. I remember when I was first hearing you talk to me the very first time, I'm sitting here and my jaw is just like on the desk in front of me. Jamal, before we get into the thick of it with, you know, some of the other topics we're going to be covering, could you just let people know, we've done 2 episodes already. Tell them the topics that we cover. You don't need to go deep into stories or anything. Just to, you know, give them a 1,000-foot view of what we talked about.
Okay. Yeah. So I think on the last interview, we first started off with my Sasquatch stories and all the stuff that I've seen, the stories that I've collected and shared, and my personal Goatman story that happened to me when I was younger. That one was pretty intense. And then before that, was all mainly focused around skinwalkers, and all the stories that I've had with those, because I've been out there a couple of times trying to look for evidence of skinwalkers, and I've come back with a lot of stories, and it's great.
You sure have, man. Dude, you have so many freaking stories, and it seems like every single one is just, it's just freaking awesome, dude. Like, I mean, I say that, and every time I say that, I think I shouldn't say that, because people who actually go through this stuff is not awesome for them. But for me, the person who hearing these stories, I'm just like, holy crap. So I know that there's a lot of different, I guess, thoughts and opinions as to how to go about that topic when it comes to the natives. So, I mean, I've been told that you're not supposed to even mention the term skinwalker. Is that how you feel?
I mean, like, growing up, my grandparents, my parents, aunts and uncles, they've always told me, hey, don't talk about skinwalkers. And, I was always kind of like curious to why. So I would always ask why. And the only response is, yeah, like if you talk about them, then it invites them into your life, and they're free to do whatever they want to you. And I've always wanted to challenge the topic, so I would always like talk about skinwalkers with anybody that is open to talking about it. And so far, nothing really bad's happened. So, yeah.
Well, that's good, man, because I like hearing your story. So I have a feeling if something bad would happen, you probably stop talking about it. So.
Yeah.
But
yeah, not yet.
Yeah. So that was interesting, and I know you mentioned a couple other things in that message, and maybe we'll get to it. But I want to make sure we make some time here, because I want you to go into that experience you had, where the alien experience. I mean, I don't know what else to call it other than that, and it's. I find these kind of encounters interesting because a lot of times people describe them, and obviously everybody has their own individual story, but there's a lot of similarities in people's experiences when it comes to these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, we can get into that.
Right now, brother, go for it.
Okay. So the alien story. So I'm a big fan of sci-fi movies. And the topic of aliens is kind of, always on my mind, always been on my mind. But this happened probably around the early 2000s, maybe 2002, 3, 4. I have it noted here. Okay, so it's between 2003 and 2005. So I had my own room. We lived in a place called Two Great Hills. My family still lives in that area. But we live in this house, and one night, I believe it was a weekend. I think I noted it down. Either way, it was dark. It was dark. It was an evening time. I was tired, so I wanted to go to sleep a little early. So that's what I did. I told everybody, I'm going to bed. I'll see you all tomorrow. So I went to my room, laid down for a little bit, and kind of just had some thoughts going through my head. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, actually, I should backtrack just to describe the room that I'm in. So it's a pretty standard room, rectangular shaped, right? Back then I preferred sleeping on the floor rather than on a bed. So I had a mattress just on the floor because that's how I liked it. So I had my mattress in the corner of a room, right? So we'll say this is the corner of my room, and right here is where the window was. And my door is just opposite of the window, and I'm sleeping in this little corner over here. And then, so here's the window, and outside they have these like yellow orange street lights that kind of like, there's one right next to my window, so it kind of casts light against the window. So it's just like the window's just glowing orange, right? And I'm just laying on my bed, and this is around like 9-10 p.m. And all of a sudden, I turn to look toward the window, and there's this figure standing there. It's about 4.5 feet tall. It's short. It's pretty short for me. It's short. But it's a little taller than I was at the time. And it it was on it. So when I first saw it, it looked like it was on the outside of the window, right? And when I was looking at it, I was kind of taking all the features of it because I was kind of weirded out by what I was seeing. And my first thought was maybe it's like my friend or something. Maybe he's at my window or something. But I didn't go up to the window to check. I just kind of was, in shock or whatever. I was just kind of scared. And what I noticed on the figure, what I was seeing was it was a pretty slender like body, not necessarily skinny, but it was slender in a way. And it had a pretty big sized head, but it wasn't like huge. But it was just standing outside my window, and as I kept staring at it, I noticed that it looked like it was moving closer without actually moving, if that makes any sense. So like it looked like it kind of was on the outside and it shifted through the window and was now in my room looking down at me. But the size of the figure didn't change at all. So it was still the same size as it was outside my window as it was inside. And I'm just staring at this thing, full force, just making sure it's not going to do anything kind of sketchy. And I'm just kind of like, frozen with fear. I think I was, terrified. And then all of a sudden, in an instant, I'm waking up in the morning. My parents are cooking breakfast, and it's time to get up, get ready for the day. And I thought that was weird. And, I was thinking the whole time, like, hey, maybe it's just a dream. Maybe I went to my room, went to bed, and fell asleep like right then and there, and that whole thing was a dream. But it felt like felt too real to be a dream. And I guess a couple of days later, maybe a week and a half, I was in school, I was in class, and I feel this like bump on the back of my ear. So I had an itch on my head, so I kind of reached up to scratch it. It's actually on the left side or the right side. I noted it down. Yeah, it was on the right side of my ear. Yeah, so I had an itch back there, so I went to go itch it, and then I noticed the weird bump behind my ear. It felt like so at the time I was thinking like it was like a pill or something, because I know pills are kind of shaped like a weird shape like that, and that's what I thought it was at the time. Like, I was like, there's a pill in my ear or something, because I never heard of like those pins or implants that they do. Yeah. Right. I didn't find out about that stuff until later on, but I felt this bump behind my ear, and it was really weird. And I tried to get my friends to take a look at it to see if there was like if I got bit by something, and they just said no, that they couldn't see anything. And then, so it was there for maybe 2 weeks, right? There's a bump in the back of my head or my ear. And, I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. And, just one day I wake up and I just go to see if that bump is still there, and it's gone. Like, it's just like, so I felt it. There was no bump. It was just completely gone. And, later on in life, I started to research aliens more. I didn't know about the whole abduction thing back then, or like the chips they implant into people. I don't know if I was necessarily abducted, but like I said, that night I just saw the thing. It shifted into my room, and all of a sudden I'm out and I'm waking up in the morning, and it's time to get ready for the day. So it was pretty weird. Pretty weird experience.
Yeah, I'd say it was weird. So, I mean, do you think that you were abducted then? I mean, to me, from the outside looking in, it sounds like you were abducted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility that I was abducted. But it's not something that I'm pushing for myself to believe that I was abducted. But looking at all aspects of the situation, it does seem like I was abducted, but I think I'm in that denial phase. Like, I don't think I was abducted. So yeah,
you don't want to believe it. I understand.
yeah, I don't want to believe it.
I wouldn't want to believe it either. So, so with that said, I'm not exactly sure as far as my memory goes if we covered this on any of the other episodes. I think we would have, but we could always touch on it again. Do you think that these experiences you've had have anything to do with being Navajo and living on a reservation?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a lot of strange like things that happen on the reservation as far as like like spirits, aliens, Sasquatch, Goatman. There's just like a lot of strange things that happen on the reservation that have kind of built up over the years. Yeah. So I think it might be because, I am Native American, and being on the reservation, you tend to experience a lot of strange happenings. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I've heard, obviously. And, just judging by all the experiences you've had, it just seems like it's got to have something to do with it,
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. And I've always been interested in all these topics as I started growing older and started to understand these. So, I would intentionally go out there and try to look for these things. And I would go like almost nightly on weekends. I would go every night on the weekends just to see if I can see something. Because going there once isn't enough. I have to go there multiple times to try to get something out of it, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of asking for it in a sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, you have other experiences here, and let's just start off with the little people. Is this like little people that live on the reservation? Is it like a whole group of them or what?
I'm not sure. There's certain people that have seen it. I know my youngest sister's ex has seen them before. I've seen them before. Have a friend of mine who's seen them before. But basically, there's these people, and they're like this tall, really. And that's like about maybe 12 and a half inches, a foot and a half. It's a foot and a half. And yeah, they're seen all over the reservation in different areas. So the same aunt, the story I told you just earlier about the skinwalker sleeping with her, her and her kids, their cousins are older than me, so they would babysit us and me and my sisters when we were younger, and they would always tell us, "Hey, don't go into the ditches. There's leprechauns that live there." And in my head, I knew what a leprechaun was, and I was like, "There's leprechauns on the reservation?" It don't make any sense. But yeah, they would always say like there's leprechauns, and I tell them like, "What do you mean leprechauns?" And like, "Oh, they're like little people. They're very short and they're very mischievous and they're kind of mean. So be careful and don't go down into the ditch." So I would stay away from the ditch when at the time. So I never really messed around with that. And then I heard this story. So there's a school not too far from where I grew up. So it was 2 Great Hills. Then up the road toward mountains as a school. It's just at the bottom of the mountain. It's the school. It's called Tolina Community School. It's a Native American boarding school, right? So that's the school I went to from 2nd to 8th grade. So all those years I've been there. I used to stay in the dormitory, and that's where I heard the story. It's one of the workers who works at night. So the dormitory in the center of the building is just like the community area. So it's got a bunch of couches, it's like a big living space, got a pool table, video games, and like a small library, just like a place for all the students to hang out. And then you had the east wing and the west wing, and the east wing or the west wing was the boy side, and the east wing is the girl side. And so there would be a night worker, one of the night workers, night staffs, who would just make sure that the students stay asleep when they're told to go to sleep and wake up when they're supposed to wake up. So they're there all night, just keeping watch. And it was the night worker who told us the story of one night he was putting everybody to sleep. This is like the late 90s. So it was before I was going to school there, but it was the late 90s. He's been working there for a long time. He's an older guy, and he was telling us a story of when he saw these strange little people. That's the only way he could describe it, as just little people, because they were very short. And he said one day it was putting all the kids to bed. There's a male and female for the girls' side, male for the boys' side. Then after that, I think the night lady goes home, and he's just there in the community area, just making sure nobody's running around or make sure everybody's asleep. And so he made sure everybody was asleep. He did his rounds, making sure nobody was running around. And he goes into the community room, and he sits on a couch, and he's like exhausted. It's pretty late. He's pretty tired. So he goes into the community room, he sits on a couch, and basically it's just this big room where, so it's a pretty standard room. It's squared, right? So it's like so here's the ceiling up here, there's the walls, and then it kind of like goes up like that again, and just windows all the way around, on top of this building. Do you want me to draw it out real quick, or was that a pretty good description?
Yeah, that's a good description. I mean, people who are listening to the podcast are like, drawing's not going to help me at all.
Yeah. But okay, so it was an elevated ceiling, and there was windows all the way around. And he just sits on the couch, and then he kind of just leans back and he looks up, and like he's like surprised by what he sees, because he can't believe what he's seen, right? And he said he was like terrified, and like at the same time he was just very like surprised, because what he was seeing wasn't something that he thought he would ever see. And what he saw just all along those windows, all the way, it's like a full 360 all the way around, all around those windows were just a bunch of little people about a foot and a half tall, and all of them were just leaning against the window, just looking down at him. And it scared the crap out of him. And he had no idea what to do, what was happening, what he was seeing. But just to imagine, to put yourself in that situation where you're the only one awake and it's the middle of the night, and to look up to see a bunch of short or small little people just all around watching you sit down on a couch. And yeah, when he told that, that was creepy. I couldn't and I was kind of like shocked when he told me that. I was like, whoa, that is a story I will probably remember for the rest of my life. And if I ever get a chance to tell somebody that story, then I will more than likely tell them that story, because it is a terrifying and great story. And if I tell anybody that story, if you could just put yourself in that situation and imagine seeing that, yeah, I don't know.
Friends, we talk about security on this show. We talk about home security, food security, survival security, and now we're talking about online security with Surfshark VPN. They keep your online identity safe by encrypting all the information sent between your device and the internet. This keeps your personal data protected from big companies or cyber criminals. Surfshark has 3,200 servers in 65 countries. You can access and unblock content libraries and streaming services from other countries like all of the Netflix libraries. And here's the most important part, friends. This is the thing that I love, and I know you guys love too, because most of the people that listen to this show are kind of in the similar thought process as me. You can bypass censorship everywhere. Surfshark liberates your internet by unblocking blocked websites and bypassing geo restrictions. That's a huge thing for me, and I know it's a huge thing for a lot of people, especially people who are trying to, research things and understand what's happening around the globe. Sometimes you need to be able to unblock certain websites that are blocked where you're located at. Now, you can secure your online data as well. A VPN encrypts your online data and helps to secure your personal information when you use free public Wi-Fi, and that is a goldmine for hackers. They look for things like that, so you're going to protect yourself like that. Masking your IP address is essential to becoming private online. A VPN makes sure that your city, country, and download history aren't linked to your identity. Friends, having a VPN is huge, and Surfshark is huge as well, and that's why I'm really glad they're here. Be sure to go to surfshark.deals/confessionals and use my code confessionals to get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. That's a great deal, friends. 83% off plus 3 free months when you go to surfshark.deals/confessionals and use my code confessionals. I was sitting here, I'm listening to you tell a story, and I'm thinking to myself, it's all, for me at least, I'm kind of wimpy when it comes to this. I hate spiders, and it's the idea of, I look at a spider, I'm like, why the heck do I hate you so much? Like you're just this tiny little thing, but it's the idea that it could crawl on me, and I don't know. And so I imagine seeing all those little people with similar effects. Like one isn't that intimidating, but a bunch of them, I don't know, man. Did he describe them at, like, do these things have like clothing and tools and stuff?
No, he didn't really describe what they look like. He just mainly described like what he experienced and what he saw. He didn't really go much into detail with these things, like war and stuff. He just said that it was very intimidating to see a lot of them kind of looking down at him. And my little sister's ex, right, lives next to that school. And so him growing up in that area, he's been exploring around that place, and it's a pretty nice place. It's right at the bottom of the mountain, so the mountain is just there. So he would always go and like explore and like climb and hike and just explore the area that he's living in. And I guess he would always come across these to us, it would be holes in like the ground or rocks. But what he would see when he was out exploring is he would see these holes in like rocks and in the ground. And he would, like interested to see what's in there. Maybe like a fox or something, or a coyote, or maybe some snakes or something. He was just curious, but he would always bring a flashlight, shine it in there. And in a couple of those holes that he found like little fireplaces right at the end of it. So it was like a little like pit with like a couple. It looked like something was burning in that little fireplace, right? And there was like little like sticks, kind of just like kind of surrounding it in a way. And and I think his father would always tell him about these things, and thankfully he never disturbed them. So he would just see them and just be like really surprised by it. And I guess when I found out that he was finding these things, I was interested. So I asked him if he could show me where he found these things because I kind of want to get a picture of it just to have for myself. But a couple of weeks later, her and him split up, and it was just awkward for me to talk to him. So I never got around to that. And like I thought that was the end of it in a way, right? But it turns out no, that wasn't the end of the little people stories that I have. So I guess later on the road, I was probably like a freshman or sophomore in high school, and staying at a friend's house. And we would always like play video games, stay up late. His grandma was pretty cool about us staying up late. And that night she wasn't there. She's usually like spending the night at her other family's place. And it would just be that night. It was just myself, my friend, and his two little brothers, right? One was pretty young, and the other was young, but in his early, he was pretty young, but he was pretty crazy dude. And this is the same friend that I've experienced all the Skinwalkers and the Goatman stuff with. I feel kind of bad because I kind of drag him into this stuff in a way, but this is one night where we were in his room. We were playing on his PlayStation, playing some video games. And his two little brothers are in the other room, and they're supposed to be asleep. I believe it was a Saturday night, and they were asleep because they were going to get up and go to church in the morning. And we were in there playing video games, and all of a sudden we just hear his youngest brother like screaming at the top of his lungs, and he's running down the hall into his room, and he's like at the door, and he's just like bawling, just tears coming down his face, and he's just like, like trying to breathe. When kids are like terrified or they're like really hurt or something, they just do that. So he was doing that, and he was like, so I don't know how to describe it, but I'll probably try to act it out a little bit. But his little brother comes into the room, and he's just like, this Chucky's in my room. He says he's going to kill me. And then we were kind of like, so at the time we were like, I knew about the little people. And then when he told me that, I was like, I just looked straight at my friend, and I was like, dude, I think it's the little people. And he lives in a place called Sheet Springs, which is about 20, 30 miles away from where Two Gray Hills and Tolina is. So like, when his little brother said Chucky was going to kill him, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, what? So we pause the game, we get up, we go into his little brother's room. His other little brother is still asleep. It was weird how he kind of slept through his brother screaming. But he's like pointing at the window, and he says, like, yeah, Chucky's coming through the window. He keeps coming in and out and saying he's going to kill me. And I better not tell anybody about him. And we were just like, I look at my friend, and he looks at me. He's like, yeah, it's a nightmare. You probably just had a nightmare. So you just go back to sleep, and you don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. So he lays back down, but this time he lays next to his brother. There's his little brother that was still asleep, so lays next to them. So shake his other brother awake and just say, hey, your brother's going to sleep next to you. Just keep an eye out. And dude, half asleep, just says, yeah. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So we go back to my friend's room, and we have the door slightly open. So we unpause the game, we continue playing our games, and not even 2-3 minutes go by, and his little brother is screaming again. And he says, and this time he's screaming really loud at the top of his lungs that Chucky's going to kill me. And so me and my friend, we didn't even think about pausing the game. We just chucked the controllers down, ran to the room, turned on the lights, and at the window there was this thing, like it was this tall, and it just like looked back at us and just jumped through the window. And yeah, we were both looking at each other. It's like, what the fuck did we just say? What? Just no words to describe what we were seeing at that moment. And like, I didn't think I was going to see it. I don't think he was thinking that he was going to see something like that in his house. And, yeah, thinking back to it, it's pretty terrifying in a way. I mean, like, it not really I mean, like, if you saw something like that, you wouldn't know what to do. It's not something you would think you would see. And we were shocked, and we were just staring at the window because we weren't sure if it was going to come back. And my friend looks toward his brother, and he just says, "It's like, are you okay? Like, what was that?" And he's like, "It was Chucky. He said he was going to kill me." So what we did at that moment, the only thing we could think to do, we just went to that window that we saw it jump out of, and then we just completely shut it, and we locked it, and then we kind of piled some stuff next to the window just to make sure that it wouldn't open again. And we were just looking at his little brother, and we're trying to calm him down. And at the same time, like, I'm like waiting on the side, just like, because I want to talk about it. But he just tells his little brother that it's a nightmare. Just go back to sleep. You're fine. We closed the window. We blocked it. You don't have to worry about anything. And then we go back, and he finally goes to sleep. So we go back to my friend's room, and then we're just like, like, we're like whisper yelling at each other. It's like, can you believe what we saw? It's like, what the fuck was that? It's like, I can't believe you saw something. Like, this is just, it's like, yeah, I knew. It was like I was like, I looked toward him. I was like, honestly, I don't think I had no idea that I was going to see something like this, like, ever. And just to have the opportunity, like, and for me, I'm excited to see this. I mean, for him and his little brother, they're kind of like in shock. I'm in shock too, but I'm also like really excited that I got to see one of these things. And that was really creepy. And then just the fact that his little brother was calling the little person Chucky, that was pretty freaky. And at the same time, I guess in that same like time frame, there's a friend who lives like across the street from where my friend lives. And when I say across the street, it's about a half a mile away. So there's like a housing complex here, and then there's like another one across the road. But apparently she's been experiencing stuff like that as well, where she would be asleep and she would hear like pots and pans and cups like falling off the counters and stuff, cabinets opening, refrigerators opening. And when she was telling me about this, and I was, on top of my head, I was thinking ghosts. Like, oh, do you have like a ghost, or is like your house haunted or something? And she was like, no, we don't have any ghosts in this place. And she was like, it's actually little people. And I like, when she told me that, I just looked straight at her and was like, are you serious? Like, she's like, yeah. So apparently it's not it happens every other night where things are thrown like around in her kitchen. And she would go in there and she would see these things jumping around on the shelves, on the countertops, like boosting each other up to the things they're trying to scavenge or something. And I guess it got so like annoying to her, and she got so used to it that she didn't even like bother it. Whenever she would hear like stuff like going on in the kitchen, she would just ignore it, just make sure her door's locked. And in the morning she would wake up and clean up, the mess that they made. Yeah.
So the little people are a real issue around there, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, they're like mischievous. They're rude. They're pretty mean. And I'm just happy that I got to see one in person.
So these little people, you said that they were going into this kid's room and bothering him and saying, threatening things to him. So I guess Are they just like normal looking people, just really tiny, like a foot to a foot and a half tall?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that they're like pretty average, like normal people. And in my thinking, like, you know, they spoke English, which was like, I mean, that's not a surprise to me, because if these things have been out there for so long and they're picking up the language and they're understanding it in their way, and they might not know like full like vocabulary, but they know bits and pieces here and there. So and do you want me to describe what I saw, the little guy?
I was just going to ask you if you could tell me exactly what you saw, because going back to what you said about the language, it doesn't surprise me that, in the sense that these are little people, they clearly have the ability to maneuver throughout, you know, your area and stuff, being relatively undetected. And who's to say that they don't, you know, sit next to windows, hear you talking all the time? And I would imagine they could pick up the language and stuff, at least phraseology. But what did you see?
Okay, so like I said, it was about a foot tall, a little taller than a foot, and it had a shirt on, but it was kind of like, it looked like it was made out of like a bigger shirt or something, like just like a cloth, and they kind of just tore it up and put it on itself in a way. And it didn't have like full like pants. It just looked like it had like a little like thing just to cover up like the goods in a way. So it's like junk. It covered that up, and it had like a little like cloth shirt that was like poorly put together. And it had a stick like in its hand, right? It wasn't necessarily a spear, right? Because it didn't look like it was like crafted into a spear, just like it was holding a stick. And the best way I can describe it is like it looked like a little like Native American person. Like they're not like necessarily like living. They're kind of like modernized in a way. Like all the stuff that is like not to like hate on like the reservation and stuff, but there's a lot of like trash and stuff on the side of the roads and out everywhere on the reservation. So I'm pretty sure they're picking up like trash, digging through them, and like finding like fabric they can use to like fabricate their own clothing out of. Yeah, it was the best way I could describe it was it looked like a short Native American, like a very small Native American with kind of a poorly put together like outfit.
So when you describe the stick that it's holding, now what I think of is hikers. When hikers go out hiking in tough terrain, what do? They have hiking sticks. And it doesn't matter if you're an old man or a young guy. If you're in a rough terrain, you usually have a hiking stick or two. Now, if these things are a foot to foot and a half tall and they're climbing through windows and stuff, I imagine just having a stick on you is probably a handy tool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the stick that he had was probably like around like this long. So it wasn't that big of a stick. And, you know, looking back at it now, I'm just like thinking about it and it's like, oh, it's kind of cute. Like, yeah. So like that was the only time I saw these things. Other than that, I've never like experienced hand to hand, like, or in person ever again. I've never seen these things again. Only because lately I haven't been like out and exploring. The reservation's on lockdown, so we're not allowed there after 9 to 5 in the morning, and on weekends it's on complete lockdown, 57 hours. So if I could go back out there and try to see some of these things again, I would, but right now it's not looking so hot with everything going on in the world, the pandemic and everything. So, whew.
So,
Yeah.
So this isn't anything to do with what we're talking about, but you just mentioned it. The reservation gets locked down on the weekends for 57 hours.
Yeah. So it might be like 56. It might be 56. But so on Fridays at 9 p.m., the reservation goes on lockdown, and you're not allowed to leave your homes or visit other family or travel on the roads all weekend until Monday at 5 a.m. in the morning.
What do you do for your time? I mean, I would get bored.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been going on for so long, and like, honestly, like at first I was kind of against it because I kind of wanted to go out there and visit my family and stuff. But like with all like the rising numbers of like the COVID cases on the reservation, I mean, like, some like in a way, like I don't want to be like mean, but I gotta say it. Some people are dumb and they still hold like family gatherings and stuff, and it's just stupid in a way. And in my thinking, I wish they would just just listen to what they're saying and just stay home, avoid large gatherings of people. But even then, so honestly, in the beginning, it was taken pretty seriously because there was like a $1,000 fine if you were caught driving around on the reservation when you're not supposed to. But now people are kind of they kind of just stopped caring in a way. They just stopped caring about getting in trouble, so people are traveling like into town and back to the reservation, visiting family members. And I think I don't know if I'll get in trouble for saying this, but the cops aren't really doing anything about it either. I think they're tired of like the lockdown too as well. And then being that the reservation is so huge, and the Navajo reservation is pretty huge, and there's about 300,000 Navajos out there, and there's only like a handful of cops, and they're so spread out that I think it's just too much work to control everybody. And yeah.
It almost sounds like I could do a whole show just talking to you about what it's like living on a reservation that large. I mean, I imagine there's got to be stories. I mean, just with the idea that the police are stretched so thin, it sounds like you can get away with a lot of stuff. So
yeah. I know. Like, thankfully, I don't live on the reservation, so I don't have to worry about that. I live just off the reservation. Gotcha. But my family, they go through all that. And they kind of tend to have a hard time because they got to do everything during the week, and during the week it's exhausting because they got to work as well. Yeah,
that makes sense. I think it's one of those things where people feel like, well, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die with my family. So
yeah, pretty much.
So talk to me about the witch with your aunt. I know you mentioned about that before we started and stuff. I want to make sure we have time to talk about that.
Oh yeah, the levitating witch.
Yeah.
So this story is great. And then, so, okay, so this is my aunt. She lives in Colorado. This is a different aunt from the story I told earlier. This is my mom's sister, right? And she lives in Colorado now, but before, when she was younger, probably like 10 or 11, her and my grandma, they used to live in Sonosti. That's where like my family is from, I guess, on my mom's side. Well, so my aunt and her two brothers would stay at their grandma's place, my great grandma's place, and her brothers would do yard work and just fix up the area. And my aunt, one day it was just, like, hey, I'm going to go play in the ditch since, it's just right there. And, the ditch is probably, well, it's not that far, from their place. I'm not really like good with distance, but it wasn't that far from her place. But so my aunt goes into the ditch and she's playing down there. She's, being growing up, not having much, you just make use of what you got. So sticks, rocks, dirt, whatever she could do with that. She was playing with that. She would just like build like a little town with sticks and rocks, and just play like swords with sticks or something. And just imagination going wild down there. And she was down in this ditch, and it was more like a wash. It was a ditch wash thing, and she was down there. She was playing, and in this thing there's like trees like all around this area. And as she was playing there, it was like probably in the afternoon, maybe 4 in the afternoon, 3, 4 in the afternoon. And she hears this voice like coming from the top of the ditch. So she's down here and she hears a voice like up here, and she kind of like just looking at it. And the voice, like, I don't know, I don't speak Navajo fluently. But the voice was telling her like, hey, come up and eat. It's like your grandma told me to come get you. I'm a friend of your grandma's. You better get up here now. And like we're always taught to respect our elders. So she didn't want to be like disrespectful to this voice that she was hearing. And the way she described it was like an older lady, and it was very like crackly in a way. A very crackly voice, and it was just talking to her in Navajo. It was like, hey, come up. Your grandma told me to come get you. So she was like, all right. So she kind of just threw down the stuff she was playing with, dusted herself off, and she starts making her way up the hill. And she's right at the bottom, and she sees this like older lady kind of like, so like here's the hill, and she's just like, she just sees like a head just slowly start coming up over the hill. And yeah, so when she was looking at the lady, she thought it was weird because like usually like with a lot of like the elders there, they would always have like their hair kind of tied up, or they would have like a bandana or something that they just put around and tie under. But this lady was weird to her because she's never seen this lady before, right? But this lady is saying that she's a friend of her grandma's. And the way she described this lady was, she looked very old, right? She looked like she was kind of hunched over, and she had long, like gray, black hair, like just like kind of split down the middle and just kind of covering her face a little bit. You can only see like the nose and just like the inner sides of her eyes. And she's got this like blanket wrapped around her, and her hands just kind of like reaching out like, hey, come on. Your grandma told me to come get you. You got to come with me right now. And she's like, she's never seen this lady before, but she doesn't want to be rude. So she starts making her way up the hill, and this lady is still like coming closer and closer over the hill. And then my aunt gets about like halfway, and then she's noticing it's like the blanket's like covering her full body. And it's, she notices the lady's hands, and they were like very like old, and it didn't look like her nails were like taken care of at all. They just looked like kind of long and yellow, and they looked chipped in a way. And then she started moving just a little closer, but she was a little hesitant to grab this lady's hand. And when she looked down at the lady's feet, because she just, like heard a voice and, like, look down right now. So she looks down, and this older lady is hunched over, reaching out for my aunt, gray, black hair just covering her face, and there's no feet. This lady is just levitating above the ground, and she has no like feet at all. And she's trying to reach for my grandma or reach for my aunt. And as soon as she saw that this elderly lady didn't have feet, she screamed at the top of her lungs, and her brothers heard her scream, so they come running toward the ditch that she was in, and then this lady just takes off. Like, she said it didn't look like it was like it didn't like magically like grow feet and start running away. No, it just turned and just levitated like away from that, away from them. And he said like the speed that this lady took off in was it didn't like not even her brothers could keep up with this lady. It just zoomed out of there and it was gone. And the brothers came over and they tried to chase her, but obviously they couldn't because this lady was just flying away so fast. And, you know, the other brother looks toward my aunt, pulls her up and asks, like, who was that? What was that? And she's like, I don't know. She said she was a friend of grandma's and told me to come with her. And they were like, yeah, that we don't know that lady. That's not a friend of grandma's. We don't know who that is or what that is. So like, just come back to the house. We're not done cleaning. We're not done. We're not done like fixing up stuff. So just come to the house. Stay around the house. Just to be safe. Just stay around the house. So they walk her back to my great grandma's house, and her brothers are in the front. They're working on the front yard, and my aunt decides to go to the back of the house because she doesn't want to be in her brother's way. And she's back there, same thing. She's playing with sticks and stones, just making up her whatever imagination she's got going there. And all of a sudden, she hears this old lady again saying, like, you're going to come with me. I'm going to take you with me. So you better come with me. And this lady, just keep in mind that this lady is saying this all in Navajo to my aunt. And she's like, my aunt, once she heard that, she froze. She knew this lady was back. And she turns around and like right at the corner of the house, she was like in the center between the house, like in the back. And right at the corner, she just sees this lady like levitate into view from the corner of the house. And this time, rather than moving slowly like it was before, it was like kind of rushing toward her and trying to grab her hand. And so my aunt, screamed again, like, she's back. And her brothers at the time were pretty much aware of what, like they kind of knew something was going to happen again. So they had my great grandfather's rifle like out just with them, just in case. And when my aunt screamed, they knew automatically. They knew instantly like this thing was back. So one of my uncles grabs the gun, rushes to the back, and then this lady like turns around and looks back at them. And once my uncle raised the gun, the same thing, it took off like away, like toward the ditch that my aunt was playing in. And my uncle's got this thing in its sights, and he fires around, he loads it again, he fires it, and he said that he's aiming like directly at this thing, but the bullets are just going straight through it. It's not even like hitting this thing. And they decide to go back into the house for the rest of the evening and just wait for her grandma to get back. And they told them about the lady that they saw, the levitating lady, and I guess they heard their grandma they were already aware of it, like they knew this thing was around this area. And they just said like, that's a witch and you better stay away from her. If you ever see her, just go the opposite, like just to go the opposite direction. If she tries to grab your hand, don't let her take your hand. So that's the levitating witch story that my aunt told me. And when she told me that story, it's one of those stories, like with the little people, it's one of those stories that kind of stuck with me because it's like really out there, and just to see something like that yourself is pretty creepy. And I don't know if I told you, but so I was telling this story to a friend of mine at work, right? And I was like, hey, do you want to hear about my aunt's levitating witch story? And then she was like, levitating witch? Like, yeah, it's this old lady with hair and she's got a blanket and she floats. And she's like, oh, well, hey, you should talk to this person who works on the south side of the building, because they said that one time they were driving on a road in a place on the reservation called Sweetwater, and they said that he saw an old elderly lady on the side of the road, and she was just floating like alongside the road the whole time. And I was just like when I heard that, I was excited because I'm going to get my chance to know more information about this story. But I don't think that guy works there anymore because they let go a bunch of contractors a while back. And I think he was one of the ones that got let go with the contractor. So I never got a chance to talk to him about the story. And then sometimes when I'm like want to sleep, I usually go to YouTube or look podcasts and try to look for just scary stories to fall asleep to. And I came across this video. I'm trying to find it. I don't know who it's by, but it's like they're reading scary stories and they talk about this levitating witch that's in Mexico. And being that we're pretty close to Mexico down here in New Mexico, I'm pretty sure that the two things are related in a way. And when I heard that person's story about a levitating witch that tried to take her when she was younger, and that just instantly made me think of my aunt's story. And I feel like there's a lot more to this than that. I'm really curious to find out more about this topic of the levitating witch.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's more to it. It seems like this is an actual phenomenon that's going on around there, and more people had been able to see it, right? I mean, if you've come across this story in your lifetime a few times, other people must have seen this, and because I mean, you haven't seen it. These stories have been relayed to you, so other people had to have seen it as well.
Yeah, and I feel like if I could find out more about it, I think I could. I mean, this is something I used to do when I was younger. I would always find people would tell me stories, and I would collect them, and I would figure out where their stories were taking place, and try to backtrack and go to those locations multiple times to see if I can see something myself. But I feel like if I could get more into this topic and try to figure out where it's seen a lot, and maybe I could probably get a chance to see it myself.
Dude, I don't know if I want to see it myself for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, just from talking to you the past few times, man, you're the kind of guy that this is what you do. So it's interesting.
Yeah. But that's a great story that my aunt told me. It's crazy. Yeah. I don't know how else to say to that. Nothing else to add to that.
Yeah. Well, Jamal, man, listen, I know you have other stories, and I think we might need to save it for another time. But, dude, I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing more of these stories. I mean, I can't get enough of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no problem. I enjoy sharing these stories.
Well, that's sure, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please share the show with your friends. I don't care where or how you share the show. Just share the show if you enjoyed it, because that's the best thing you can do to help the show grow. Share it with your friends. And before we get out of here, please go ahead and follow the Confessionals on Instagram, friends. That's the social media that I hang out on the most. So if you want to have interaction with me, I do a lot of different live videos on there. So if you want to, hang out with me and have me answer your questions in the comments sections and stuff like that, check us out, the Confessionals podcast on Instagram. And until next week, friends, stay safe, take care, and remember, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. Bye.